perspectives. What we're going to talk about in this video is character handling, what weapon for weaponry, and then also we're going to create a character AI for us to kind of walk around and just take a look at, something that will shoot back at us perhaps. So I'm just going to take this platform I was using last time and move it aside. And what I'm going to create now is a new game object. So create game object empty. We can make it an empty object if we want. I'm going to drag this over here, and we're going to rename this AI, or my AI. And here we're going to add component, and we're going to add a character controller, or a character.cs script, and it says auto build AI character, which we're going to want to do. That's a really fast way to do a little bit of the work for us. And right now we have, and right now our character just has no artwork or anything like that, but it does have a Corgi controller and a box collider. Has some health and all the has all the abilities that it may need or want. So I'm going to just collapse all this here and get to the part that is a little bit different. Also, let's give it some artwork. It doesn't look like it has a sprite renderer. So sprite renderer. And you know what? Let's go into Kenny's art assets and grab some artwork that might have been an enemy. Base pack, enemies. And we'll just do this slime. I'm just going to grab one frame of it. Or maybe I'll grab all 3 frames. We're not going to use them all right this second. Textures. And there we have 3 pieces of artwork. Something that we can drag into right here to just give it a little bit of body. Something to look at when we're taking a look at it. So right now this has the damage on touch event. So the target layer that it's attacking is the player. So when you're going to touch this, it's going to hurt. And the really good stuff here is the AI walk. So we've got AI walk, and we've got AI walk. In AI walk, we've got walk patrol behavior patrol or move on site. So it can either go back and forth, or it can move only when the player is seen. And we're gonna move this over to this platform, so you know, be bouncing back and forth below us. We'll press play. And oh, you know what? I think I have forgotten. Oh no, it automatically put it on layer enemies, but I think that this brick here is sorting behind it. So let me fix this a little bit. Platform horizontal. Let's put this in the background. So sorting layer will go to background. Hopefully that'll fix things. No, let's undo 2D mode. So the issue I'm having is that my character is way too far back. So this is something that happens sometimes. See, the Z offset, it should be set to 0. That way the character comes forward. So when I press stop, it's gonna reveal itself. This is something that happens. This is why it's not actually 2D mode. You gotta be a little bit careful. And there we are. It even flips back and forth. And the reason why it's flipping back and forth backwards is because Kenny put all the characters facing left, and you usually put characters facing right. So that's just something you will have to fix around with artwork later on. If I walk over here, I should be able to get damage from it. All right, so that's going to be just the way we drop in AI. It's pretty straightforward. There is obstacle detection. Avoid falling. So right now, if I put it over here, it will fall off the ledge. Let's press play. Zip, right off the ledge. It was just a frame or two. I don't know if you saw that. But if we set this to avoid falling, it will try its best to detect the edges and ping pong back and forth here. So avoiding falling, change direction on walk. We could also just turn that off if we wanted to be a little bit more retro. Move on sight, view distance and stop distance. So move on sight layer, this is the thing you need to set if you're, so we'll leave this over here. The platform or the move on sight layer is player, move on sight obstacles, the things that stop it from being able to see you are platforms. And I'm gonna move my level start over here just so we make sure that the player is not seen right away. Move on sight on layer, you need to set the player and platform. But you also have to make sure to set move on sight. And then from here, we'll take a look, and it's not moving until I get closer. And there we go. Starts triggering, and now it got stuck on this, it seems. Or no, it's just going towards the character, that's why. But that's, a really easy way to move stuff around. So let's take a look at weapons. Weapons are also something that's really useful. The first thing we need to do to think about weapons is go to our character. To do that, we're going to go to our prefabs and go to our mini character and make sure that the character has character handle weapon. So let's say you wanted to allow the player to enter the room and suddenly being able to use weapons or pick something up for the first time. You could turn this on and off during game via trigger. There's also some stuff in here that might be interesting to you. We've got initial weapon, which is the first weapon that you have. If it's none, can you pick it up? So you could just toggle this on and off, or toggle off weapons. Binding, weapon attachment, none.transform. So this is something that's super cool about the Corgi engine. I in my opinion, this is the weapon attachment position. So if I drag out our character, and right now our minimal player doesn't really have anything in it in terms of, a childed object. But let's say we wanted to attach a weapon to it. Well, we can create a game object, create empty, and I'm gonna select an icon here by clicking and dragging. I'm gonna say position to gun. I'm going to type in gun attach point. And right now this is free floating. So I want to actually child this to my character. Collapse that. Gun attach point. I want to bring this into our minimal player. And now this is where the gun will attach itself to. And the character can move around at the same time. So this is the first thing we might want to do in order to make sure that our gun is going to work. The other thing we're going to do is we're just going to give the player, our minimal player, we're going to give this one a weapon. So we're going to go down here. We're going to say initial weapon. And you know what? I'm going to just I'm going to look for machine gun. And here we go. I'm going to bring in Corgi machine gun in. I have to click on it again. It's always so frustrating. Lock that. And we're going to bring in the Corgi machine gun, the initial weapon there. And we're going to press play. And we're going to take a look at this gun attachment point. Oh, whoops, I forgot to update the player. So now that we've done that, we're going to want to select override and apply all to our prefab so that we can maybe, I'm just going to delete this from the scene now so that we know that we have a gun attach point. And now we have a machine gun. All right, so it's a very short machine gun, but it does work. So what do we do? So what is happening in here? The player has a little machine gun pickup, and usually you have to also attach some artwork and that kind of thing to it. Let's go to our player. So our player has this object, right? And if we take a look at our machine gun, select that, and we'll just drag one into the scene. We can take a look at the script here. So all weapons are set on a projectile weapon script. There's also a melee script we'll look at in a second. The trigger mode is auto or semi-automatic. You can have delays before use. So like if you need to hold something down to charge it up or something, delay before reloading. This is really important. So how fast can you shoot bullets, and time between uses. So how long does it take for the bullet to reload? You might have a magazine-based game in which you have ammo and things to pick up and how much ammo is consumed for each gun. The position of the weapon attachment. You can offset things as well, and whether or not it flips back and forth. There's also handedness position if you are using a game and getting a little into the artwork. And then, let's move this open. Modify movement while equipped, modify movement while attacking, prevent all movement while in use. So there's a really awesome opportunity to kind of manage some really custom things. So if you have like a big heavy weapon, it would make sense that maybe the character goes slower or is using a really different animation. That does everything for you, which is really fantastic. So this is the projectile that it's going to shoot. It's got some sound effects and other things in here. The other thing in here is the weapon aim script. This is very important. So right now we have a stick, 8 directions, aim control. Maybe we want it on the mouse. So we can just very quickly change what kind of aiming controllers we have. We also can change it to directional or whatnot. There's also a reticle if you wanted to put in like a little target, and that way you can kind of see where you're aiming. And then also there's this object here, the Simple Object Pooler. Game objects to pool, Corgi machine gun projectiles, which are the actual projectiles it's going to spawn. These are Box Collider 2Ds, and it has a projectile script on it. That projectile allows it to fly around. The projectile allows it to fly around. How fast does it go? What movement speed is it? And it also has a damage on touch, which we played with a little bit before. So, what things can it hurt? This target layer mask has a couple things because it wants to hit, walls and enemies and platforms. This is a pretty standard one. Knockback and all that stuff that we looked at before. It also has a health script. The reason why is because when it hits something, we want to destroy it and destroy on death, and we want to do all that. So what does this pooler object do on the machine gun? Well, the way Unity works in a way that you want to program, which we won't get into too much, is called object pooling. So whenever you create an object in a video game engine, it doesn't matter which one, it actually can take a lot of processing power to keep track of all the objects. And just think, if you're playing a game for an hour or two, you've probably spawned thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of bullets, right? Well, instead of using thousands of bullets, what we do is we create a pool of objects, and that pool is usually 50 to 100. Depends on how many bullets you're firing off and what kind of weapons you're using and a lot of different things. But it allows you to spawn in an object and then turn it off and then bring it back on, which is much less processor intensive. So if you started programming your own project, you'd probably want to start setting up pooling systems that'll help you get along with what you want to do. So these are the things that we need on the gun. We need an aim. We need the projectile weapon script. We also need a bullet to fire, which has a sprite renderer, Box Collider 2D, Rigid Body 2D, a projectile script, a damage on touch script, and a health script. So with all of that, they'll explode. They'll do what we needed to do. So it's a lot of components in here to create, but it's all pretty straightforward and allows you to kind of mix and match what you're going to be using, and you can kind of set what bullets to shoot. So let's say instead of a machine gun, you might want to use a melee weapon. So let's go, instead of the initial weapon being a Corgi machine gun projectile, what we're going to maybe create is a melee weapon. So a melee weapon has the same things. Melee weapons or punching or whatever, this is all handled through the weapon system the same way. So you just kind of give it a script. Now the melee weapon is a little bit different. We're gonna drag this one into our. We're gonna go to our prefabs, and then we are going to. So we're gonna bring our character out, and we are going to find the melee weapon. Minimal melee, and we are going to, we're going to drop it right in our initial weapon spot. And once we've done that, update our prefab again, and I just like to delete it afterwards. All right, so now that we have the melee attack in, we are going to press play, and let's take a look at our melee. Oops, looks like I punched myself to death. So one of the things that we need to take a look at. So the reason why I punched myself was because the damage caused on the minimal melee attack is right now target layer mask player as well. I'm just gonna remove that because I don't want to punch myself. And if I press play, that'll at least stop it from doing that, just to double check before we move on. And we're also going to have to put that and apply that to the prefab. And then clicking should at least, there you go. All right, so now let's get into some video game theory. So if we zoom in here, it's a little hard to see with the character because of the camera bit here. But when we click, do you see that little red box? All that is a box collider that is spawning where it should, which is in front of the player. So you see this little box. So when you click on the a melee punch is just something that's spawning a collision box that will allow you to detect another object. So you're basically creating an invisible trigger and setting up a box. Now that's how all video games generally do this. Pixel perfect collision doesn't really work very well. We can see an example of this in some old Street Fighter 2 footage, which I will link down below. And you can see in that footage that the characters are moving around, and there's usually a hitbox, and then there's the actual physical collision, and then there is which is made up of like a head and a body and some legs, and then from there you are able to take you're able to spawn the hitboxes on top of your enemy. Now you might notice, and this is something in Street Fighter that makes a lot of sense once you think about it, if you did pixel perfect collision, like when the artwork touches anything, that means that even like a wisp of hair or something of that nature could really damage it. So those hitboxes are really tweaked and fine-tuned. That's how Smash works. That's how a lot of games work. And that can be really where a lot of the game balance and mechanics work, is like exactly how high is something and exactly how far does this cover. It also allows you to set up melee attacks that like attack far away, like Dulcim, or if there's any moves where like you punch the ground and then something happens far away. So there's a lot of different opportunities to do some cool stuff with this and extend it the way you want it to. So the other thing that I'm going to draw your attention to, and again, we're just going to take a look at one of the pieces that Corgi made because it's very straightforward, is what happens if you want to like pick up the weapon, right? What if you want to swap it over? So if we drag this out, we've got an item rocket launcher. I was searching for, this is item rocket launcher, prefab, under weapon pickers, under demos minimal. And in here, we can take a look. This is just a sprite renderer to show you the art object. And anytime you touch this, you pick up a rocket launcher. It's got a box collider 2D and something here that says pickable weapon and then weapon to give. So that's really all we need to do. This auto respawn script here allows you to respawn this pickup as well. So if you want it to spawn again, you could. If you don't want it to spawn, don't put that one on. From here, So it looks like our minimal viable character doesn't have. It says there is no animator attached to our character. That means that we might have to do a little bit more work on our character in order to bring it up to code, as it were. So we're just going to bring this character out, and we're going to check add an animator. And right now we're not going to leave put a controller in there, but that's where a controller would be if we wanted to actually control animations, as it were. So the other thing that we're going to need to do with our minimal viable character is let's turn off the weapon and just put this to none, the initial melee weapon that it picks up. But character handle weapon is allowed, and pickups are allowed, can pick up weapons. Oh, whoops, I also forgot to put this up to the prefab. So now that we've done that, overrides, apply all. And let's delete our minimal player from the scene so that it'll spawn normally. So jump over there, and look at that rocket launcher. And if we notice, we can, let me make sure I don't kill myself on that little fire. But if we shoot this guy, bam, it dies. So there's a lot of stuff, obviously, on the rocket launcher script that is been set up automatically. So you might want to poke around and see how you can modify the weapons. And now let's maybe make this a little bit more interesting now that we understand how weapons work. We're going to go to add component on our AI character and type in AI shoot on sight. So there's a bunch of other things in there, and we're going to take a look at those in a second. But the AI shoot on sight script will allow the little slime to shoot the player on sight. Target layer mask, we need to set this to player. Otherwise, it will not know which layer to look for. And shoot distance is 10. So if we're going to have that, we're going to also need to give a weapon to this enemy as well. Maybe we do not want to have it pick up weapons, but its initial weapon is, hey, why not rocket launcher? And we are going to sort by prefab so that we can have fewer of them. And then it looks like that's the artwork. There we go. Weapons, ammo, minimal, or no, we don't want it with ammo. We want it without. Weapons, minimal rocket launcher. So we're going to give the slime that rocket launcher, this one over here. We're going to drag that into initial weapon. So hopefully what this will do is start firing when it also sees us. So it doesn't see us yet. I have a rocket launcher too. Let's do this rocket launcher fight. Oh, look at that. So it did see me and it started firing rockets right away. So let's take a look at the other components in there because I kind of glossed over them really quick, but this is really where some of the nice AI stuff. So we're going to type in AI. There's some actions, action change weapon, action do nothing. So we have some code here that allows us to do certain things. Action fly towards target, action jump. These are all different opportunities for the AI to do things. And really, we're just looking through the AI list. We have AI decision health. So make a decision based off of how much health you have and do this or the other thing. Oops. You could also randomize the decision so that there's some decision tree stuff, which is really fantastic to use. AI follow. So if you wanted to create like a little follower AI, if you ever played Spyro, the little bauble that floats around, you could create an AI that kind of rubber bands and moves around. So if we add an AI brain here, we can see the different kinds of states and actions it can do. I'm not going to get into this too much because we're not going to get into a lot of the really nitty gritty of Corgi's AI system, but there is some opportunities here these are actions and these are transitions. So you can set the states, the state name, all that kind of stuff. This is also really going to be helpful in the next tutorial when we hook this up, when we hook up the AI into dialogue system. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of artwork and other things to make things really shine. But enjoy, and that's all I want to cover today. I will see you in class.